All right, folks, it is definitely time for the news on the morning before Christmas Eve. And definitely we'll be seeing a lot of things going on in the world. Russian investigators probe deadly explosion near the site of general's car bomb assassination. So, blast kills three in Moscow near the site of the general's car bombing. So, that's definitely something that folks are talking about there in news from Russia. And Gaza's Christians, battered by war, celebrate the first Christmas in 3 years. Gaza's tiny Christian community tries to capture the holiday spirit during this particular holiday. Thousands attend Christmas tree lighting ceremony in Bethlehem, the first since the war in Gaza began. Bethlehem will be celebrating Christmas for the first time since the Gaza war. Libyan army chief was killed in a Turkey plane crash. Libyan's military chief of staff and four others are killed in a plane crash in Turkey. Libyan's army chief was killed in that crash, and contact is lost with the private jet heading for Libya after takeoff from Turkey, officials say. Iran and the U.S. reaffirm commitment to diplomacy at the UN. There is a gap on a nuclear deal, and apparently that gap remains wide. Security Council remains divided over Iran nuclear program. Sanctions stay in place. Russia offensive campaign assessment as of December 23rd. Poland scrambles aircraft after Russia strikes Ukraine, Polish armed forces say. And Russia Ukraine war update. Uh, Darkness in Ukraine after the latest Russian attack and Russian air attack on Ukraine kills three and sparks sweeping outages. Indian rocket launches AST Space Mobile Next Generation Bluebird 6 satellite. AST Space Mobile looking at 300% advance after successful launch from India. So India's space agency launches its heaviest satellite yet, and they're launching the record-breaking Bluebird 6 smartphone satellite to orbit and all along those lines. West Bengal students in Bangladesh say feel more scared as an Indian than as a Hindu. Crisis in India-Bangladesh relations spiral amid violent protests. Some in Jamaat, Bangladesh government, fueling anti-India rhetoric is what NDTV is saying, and Bangladesh has summoned its India envoy as protests erupt in New Delhi. Trump's recall of ambassadors compounds staffing problems at posts in Africa. Trump administration orders nearly 30 U.S. ambassadors to leave their posts, and how a recall of career diplomats fits into the Trump's foreign policy shift. So Trump is ousting more Biden area ambassadors. That's one thing that we know for sure, and all along those lines. And Pope Leo the 14th is first Christmas of peace. He is preparing to celebrate his first Christmas as a pontiff, and he revives tradition during first Christmas of his pontificate. So this is we'll see him celebrating that in the Vatican. Brazil Supreme Court allows Bolsonaro to leave prison for surgery. So Brazilian Supreme Court says Bolsonaro can leave prison to undergo surgery, and he's to undergo hernia surgery on Thursday. So definitely we'll see how that goes, and hopefully he does well with his surgery. North Korea's Kim Jong Un and his daughter have opened a luxury resort. So they're advertising their new luxury hotels near China for North Korea elite. And Japan's H3 rocket fails during a launch of a navigation satellite. Japan loses another H3 launcher plus a navigation set. So that's the people talking about it as well. And NGOs fear Israel registration rules risk collapse of Gaza aid operation. UNRWA situation report number 201 on the humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip and the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem. A soaked tent or a bombed out ruin, Gazians face a grim choice this winter. So a lot's going on in that space. And China is probe finds Taiwanese man-controlled ship that cut the underseas cables. China probe finds Taiwanese smugglers controlled vessels that damaged subsea cables. Mainland authorities issue wanted notices for two residents in the island of Taiwan on illegal smuggling case, offering rewards of up to 250,000 yuan. So definitely that's something that folks are talking about as well. And Guyana's junta leader is expected to win the first election since the 2021 coup. So they're going to have their first election since the 2021 coup. And as many people had heard, Greta Thunberg was arrested for pro-Palestinian protests under UK terrorism law as of yesterday. So she was arrested in London over the Palestine Action prisoner placard, and we'll see how this all plays out in the both regular court and the court of public opinion. And government waters down its farm inheritance tax plan. So Starmer is backing down in the farm tax row. But why now? And this is going on in the UK. U-turn on inheritance tax for farmers snuck out to avoid scrutiny, says the Tories. So farmers celebrate Keir Starmer's Christmas U-turn on the inheritance tax. And Israel hilltop settlers coordinate an attack to expel Palestinians. Land grab inside Israel's escalating campaign for control of the West Bank. Out for Blood writer Jasper Nathaniel on surviving Israeli settler attack on the West Bank olive farmers. And Security Council met in on Venezuela, Iran, and Somalia. Explanation of a vote on a UN Security Council resolution to renew the mandate of the AU Support and Stabilization Mission in Somalia. So the UN Security Council agrees to extend African Union peacekeeping mission in Somalia for another year. And Asia's year in review, who had it best and who had it worst in 2025. The Pacific Money Blog is what was being reported in The Diplomat. And peace development remained Asia Pacific's aspired aspiration amid security challenges. And four things that will go faster in 2026 and five things that will go slower is what QZ.com is predicting. From AI to Venezuela, why 2026 is a hinge year for global power. So some people are trying to figure out what's going to be happening in that whole notion of power and global power in the year 2026. Colombia declares an economic emergency in a criticized effort to get some more money. So Colombia uses emergency powers to hike tax on banks and the rich, and is planning an emergency decree to fund $4 billion in 2026 budget needs. Colombia's government will declare an economic emergency after the Senate sinks the finance bill. Ukrainian troops withdraw Severodonetsk as strikes and power outages continue. So Ukraine loses embattled eastern town as Russia advances continues. Russian forces seize the embattled Seversk town as Ukrainian troops withdraw. So Ukraine loses Seversk, a bastion guarding the last quarter of the Donetsk region. And an analysis, Chinese tariffs on EU dairy to help bleeding domestic industry send message abroad. So France demands EU auction to counter Chinese duties on dairy, and China hits EU dairy industry with tariffs of up to 42.7%. China to impose a provisional anti-subsidy duties on EU dairy products. Redacted materials in some Epstein files is easily recovered. Top takeaways from the third Epstein files release: the president, the plane, and the prince. New Epstein files mention Trump and SCOTUS rules on National Guard in Chicago. Top takeaways from the third Epstein files release: the president, the plane, and the prince. So definitely that's something the folks are talking about. And Justice Department scrambling to find holiday volunteers to redact the Epstein files, internal DOJ email says. And the gas leak suspected in a fatal blast at Bristol TWP nursing home. So two dead and 20 injured after fire and explosion at a Pennsylvania nursing home. So definitely that's something that folks are talking about in terms of a gas leak and all along those lines. And 19 states sued to block the White House plan to end gender-related care for minors. So 19 states and the DC are suing HHS over efforts to ban transgender care for minors. Trump administration is moving to cut off transgender care for children, and Democratic states are suing to block cuts to U.S. children's gender-affirming care. Where is Santa right now? The NORAD tracker is mapping his 2025 Christmas flight. Where's Santa? You can check his location on the NORAD tracker as he travels around the world. And NORAD celebrates 70 years of tracking Santa. So they've been doing this for 70 years. And of course, folks love to see where he's at and where he'll be coming by their part of their world. Republicans consider using reconciliation against again after Trump's biggest legislative win. So, exclusive budget chair Graham plots next Republican Party line bill. Nasty entry party fight looming for Republicans when they return to D.C. So that's something we're hearing. I'll bring in Rick, see what he's got going on in his world, and all along those lines. So what's happening in your world, Rick, and how are things going over here?
Just got back from 2 weeks in London.
Okay,
Um, I can tell you about that.
yeah,
Uh, you're part of our every 2 week show on with where I argue with Lance, and Lance
right,
is very worried about London. Um, Says it's losing its culture, and based on statistics Lance gave me, which were garbage, I figured out what he was talking about. Lance is freaking out because he listens to a bunch of ultra right wing kind of racist garbage heads, and they fill
right.
his head with sawdust. Um, London is 37% white.
Mhm.
London has a Muslim mayor. It doesn't freaking matter. London is a great city. Um, well, my wife and I, we went there to visit with our kid who married a Brit and his family. And when she wasn't available because she's got to work, we would just pick a part of London. We'd take the tube and the bus there, and we just walk around and just see different parts. London is one of the world's great cities. It remains so. Uh, Even though it's got less than half white people, that's no big deal. Also, Britain remains super white. It's
Okay,
81% white. But let's talk about what white and black are.
right.
Uh, Race is one of the most evolutionary, flexible, fast and flexible characteristics. 30,000 years ago, if you took a bunch of white people and you put them in Africa, within 10,000 years, they would look just like the black people in Africa. Also, vice versa. You take black people, you put them in Northern Europe, their characteristics would change in regard because of evolutionary pressure. But that those are external pressures. Their insides wouldn't change. Well, of course, you can't do that experiment now because A, we don't have 30,000 years, and B, uh, white people survive in Africa just as well as black people because they just turn on the air conditioning,
Yeah.
right? Black people, you send them to Sweden. Oh, well, they just put on extra blankets. It's so anyway, Lance is full of crap. London remains great. Um,
So you had a good time in London. It sounds like, and everything. You were asking about the definition. I looked it up, but they say race is a person's self-identification with one or more social groups. On census surveys, an individual can report as white, black, or African American, Asian, American Indian, and Alaska Native, Native Hawaiian, and other Pacific Islander, or some other race. And of course, there's a whole notion of whether it is a conversation around race or ethnicity, and all along those lines. I ran into a friend of mine. He's going to be going to Australia. Need to get in touch with Shaquille and
yeah,
see
there was one bummer about London.
what was the one.
Listening to Lance's BS colored my eye on London. Like it made me aware of race in London. I could have done without that unnecessary distraction.
Well, I understand that, but yeah, because here's what, according to Missouri Census Data Center, and this is from the state of Missouri, and I just happened to look it up and pull it up, but they said white, a person having an origin in any of the original peoples of Europe, the Middle East, or North Africa. Black or African American, a person having origins in any of the black racial groups of Africa. American Indian or Alaska Native, a person having origins in any of the original peoples of North or South America, including Central American, who maintain tribal affiliation or community attachment. Asian, a person having origins in any of the original people of the Far East, Southeast Asia, or the Indian subcontinent, including, for example, Cambodia, China, India, Japan, Korea, Malaysia, Pakistan, the Philippine Islands, Thailand, and Vietnam. Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islanders, a person having origins of any of the original people of Hawaii, Guam, Samoa, or other Pacific Islands. So that's according to Missouri, and I'm sure different states do different definitions.
Oh, well, there's one more thing. I didn't tell y'all I was going to London for 2 weeks because you don't tell people your travel plans until you come back
Right.
because you don't know who's watching this show and you don't want to tell people you're out of town.
Right.
NBA players and NFL players a bunch of them learn this every year because their schedule is posted, which means thieves know when they're out of town for a game.
Yeah, well, and it depends on why you're going out of town. Because I did run into a friend of mine yesterday as I was doing mass transit, and he was telling me that he is going to be leaving, going to Australia because apparently it is Bob Marley's birthday. So he will be going, and he's released some new music. He's a hip hop artist, but he also does some reggae and other type of music. So he'll be going to a festival honoring Bob Marley somewhere in Australia. But I didn't ask him because we know Australia's got many provinces and things like that. So I don't know whether he's going to be going to Sydney or whether he's going to be going to one of the other ones that are there. I just know that it's for a Bob Marley activity in the big country of Australia. But yeah,
And I've got another tip, which is don't get on a plane within 3 days of Christmas. I've never been on a plane with more people coughing. I was freaking out because the one time I caught COVID, it was from guys coughing next to me on a 4-hour flight. And this was an 11-hour flight. The lady behind me was coughing her ass off. I finally turned around and gave her a mask, which could be seen as rude, but I didn't want to get COVID again. But you maybe want to. My wife did a great thing. She had us travel before Christmas. She got us out of town to London on December 9th, and then we came back yesterday, and that saved more than $1,000 if you travel before Christmas. You save money. Also, that first flight out in early December was filled with much fewer sick people.
that makes sense. And apparently, I did not know that Bob Marley was popular in Australia, but my friend told me that he's getting a lot of play there. And then I just looked it up, and the AI said Bob Marley celebrations in Australia are popular, especially around his February birthday, which will be coming up in 2 months, featuring large annual events like the Bob Marley International Reggae Festival in Perth and numerous tribute shows by bands like Roaring Lion and artists like Shim Reggae alongside club nights and things like that. So apparently, Bob Marley's got his um, tentacles in terms of his
Well,
legacy
I
in
know.
Australia.
Maybe island culture. They call Australia the world's smallest continent, but you could also call it the world's largest island. Yeah, I would bet that 90% of Australians live within 100 miles of a beach.
Oh yeah, I would think that would be the case. So that might be why it's popular because the Caribbean is very beach oriented as well. So maybe that's why it's incredibly popular and all along those lines. But yeah, but it looks like this event's going to take place February 7th. So that's not that lot far away. We just got to get through January and February. But it does look like at least one of the festivals, the outer national one, will be taking place on February 7th. So we're talking about what's that, 5 weeks from now or something like that. So what
Uh, yeah,
what
somewhat.
advice would you give to people that are trying
Also,
to?
also, February in the southern hemisphere equals August in the northern. So that's the height of Australia's summer.
Okay, so that's the middle of their summer.
Mhm.
Cool. I did not know that. So they'll be in the middle of their summer and everything like that. What was the weather like in London?
Cold for an LA person. It was 10 degrees Celsius, which equals 50 degrees Fahrenheit. We had pretty good luck. There was only one day of solid rain, but it's nippy if you're, a Southern California person. But
Does California ever have white Christmas? Because I know we're having a very mild Christmas. It's like around 60 degrees today, and I think it'll probably be 60 tomorrow. So there will be no white Christmas in North Carolina and everything like that. But we have had
so
them in the past. But if y'all
we
ever
may
had
have
that,
had one. The last time LA got any significant amount of snow was in the 1940s or 1950s. You do see some frost in the morning around this time of year, but it's gone, I don't know, within an hour. Um,
oh,
and we've got 4 days of rain, so we're going to have a wet Christmas.
you're gonna have a wet Christmas?
Yeah.
We might have a wet Christmas too. I think they said well, it's nice now, but I think that we may get some rain tomorrow as well. I can't remember what the weatherman said. I should look it up to see if it was going to be a wet Christmas while I'm having Christmas dinner with
Well,
mom.
there's a rule in government, right? That if there's bad news for you, you release it on Friday evening when everybody's going home for the weekend, hoping that by Monday, people will forget. Well, that's what the government's been doing with the Epstein files, releasing stuff right before, on Christmas Eve, right before Christmas Eve, hoping people get distracted by Christmas business. Also, Trump, I think, didn't he extend the Christmas holiday by 2 extra days, both not just the 25th, but the 24th and the 26th?
Oh, I didn't know he extended it because I know that we've
My
got.
wife tells me that he's making those days federal holidays. So you get a 3 day Christmas, which people will like. That's a popular thing. But also, if you've got the government shut down for some extra days, right after all this Epstein stuff comes out, he's hoping, to distract.
Well, maybe you just have holidays all the way through to January 1st because I know you're of Jewish background, and I know that Hanukkah is either just ended or is about to end, and right after Christmas, Kwanzaa will start, and Kwanzaa runs for about 7 days, starting on the 26th until
Yeah.
January 1st, and there are different principles with Kwanzaa. Every day has its own principle and everything like that. But yeah, Kwanzaa will be starting.
Well, Kwanzaa stays put, as does Christmas.
Right.
Hanukkah jumps around. You can have Hanukkah as early as, I don't know, December 3rd or something, and you could probably have it late and where it would stretch into January. So um, we'll be okay. We're Jewish people are used to Hanukkah being kind of the stepchild of holidays. We only have like two Hanukkah songs, and they're not very good. Um, and Dreidel, the Hanukkah game, is one of the worst games you could pause. You can only play it for about 10 minutes before you get bored. It's an ancient game with a dreidel, which is a top made of clay, and you bet on which face the top is going to stop on. It's uh, craps is a much better game than dreidel.
Oh, okay. And I just found the 7 principles. I should know them because I've been involved in quality celebrations for years, but I always forget them. They have different names, but the first one is Umoja, which is unity, and it's just calling for people to strive for and maintain unity in the family, community, nation, and race. The one that I always have a hard time pronouncing, which is Kuja Chagalia, which is self determination. That's to define and name ourselves as well as to create and speak for ourselves. Ujima, which is collective work and responsibility to build and maintain our community together and make our brothers and sisters' problems our problems and to solve them together. Ujama, which is cooperative economics to build and maintain our own stores, shops, and other businesses and to profit from them together. Nia, which is also a popular name. Purpose, to make our collective vocation the building and development of our community in order to restore our people to their traditional greatness. Kuumba, which is creativity, to do always as much as we can in the way we can in order to leave our community more beautiful and beneficial than we inherited it. And the closing day, which is always the day of January 1st, New Year's Day, is faith, to believe with all our hearts in our people, our parents, our teachers, our leaders, and the righteousness and the victory of our struggle. Speaking of
Well,
simple,
hold on. Let's talk about, because that, like, from a kid's point of view, like, for Christmas means gifts.
right,
Hanukkah means 8 gifts. Good
right.
gift on the first night, middling, crappy gifts on nights 2 through 7, and then on the last night, the eighth night, your best gift. And also, like, if you're Jewish, like I am, growing up in a Christian community, you also maybe get a couple things on Christmas too. Kwanzaa, like, you just read a bunch of stuff that sounds like homework. Do people who celebrate do the kids get gifts every night of each of the 7 nights? I would.
There are gifts, there are Kwanzaa gifts and everything like that. There is also, as a matter of fact, Zawadi is the gifts and everything like that. So yes, there are folks that are getting gifts, and some people give gifts all 7 days of the holiday, kind of like you were saying, that is done with Hanukkah and everything like that. But yeah, some of it is definitely principles and all along those lines. But there is definitely dances and parties and
Okay,
celebrations.
all right, as long as, because I mean, I mean, really, all these the holidays. Now, Kwanzaa is a little different because it was started more recently,
Right.
but the late December holidays are really because, I mean, Jesus wasn't really born on December 25th. I do, but they picked that day for his birthday because in the northern hemisphere, December 25th weather-wise and daylight-wise, sucks butt. And people are sad. It's dark, it's cold, and you need to have festivities. You need to drink, you need to eat sweets, you know, you need to. So
Yeah, well, you got a point there. They said in 2019, the National Retail Federation poll found that 2.6% of people who plan to celebrate a winter holiday said they would celebrate Kwanzaa, and roughly 14% of the United States population is African American. But it did back in the 90s. The holiday became increasingly commercialized, with and the first Hallmark card being sold in 1992, and some have expressed concern about the commercialization of Kwanzaa as well. But the first Kwanzaa stamp, designed by the famous artist Cynthia St. James, was issued by the U.S. Post Office in 1997. And in that same year, Bill Clinton gave the first presidential declaration marking the holiday. And some people have marked it along with him that might surprise people. So subsequent presidents, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, Donald Trump in his 48th term, and Joe Biden also issued greetings to celebrate Kwanzaa. So it looks like they have celebrated Kwanzaa from here to here and everything. And there's a um,
all
film
right,
that
so
Maya Angelou narrated called Black
let's
Panther.
go.
We actually show it here every year.
Let's talk about symbolism. Corn is one of the primary symbols of Kwanzaa,
Yes.
which I don't know, doesn't sound exciting to me. But then you look at what's the primary symbol of Hanukkah? A candelabra. Also not exciting. What's the primary symbol of Christmas besides the baby? Well, you know, the baby Jesus. Not exciting. But
Well,
besides
mistletoe can
that,
be exciting.
wait, well, hold on. Besides that, candy canes. Not the one of the least exciting candies.
Yep. Well, speaking of least exciting and getting off of the holiday just for a minute and everything like that, there I did not watch it. I think I saw a few minutes of Sylvester Stallone being honored, and I know it was pre-recorded, even though they kept saying live. It was not actually live, and everything like that. So that can be a misnomer because it was actually recorded. But President Trump hosted the Kennedy Awards, and this was before he named it now the Trump Kennedy Centers and everything like that. Some people were upset at the disco pioneer Gloria Gaynor because she decided to accept one of these Kennedy Awards in the new Kennedy Trump Center and everything like that. But I just wanted to, you watch any of the awards? Because I know Kiss was also honored, and Kiss used to wear some great makeup and have some great outfits, and all along those lines. And there might have been one or two others honorees that I forgot about.
So I was over in England, so I didn't see it. Which I did. My wife and I were both. We both liked having a vacation from the endless barrage of news. So who got honored? I've got it here. George Strait, country music guy. Kiss, rock and roll, with face makeup. Michael Crawford, I think, is best known for singing Phantom of the Opera. Gloria Gaynor, you mentioned, and Sylvester Stallone. I don't know. This is an unusual Kennedy Center honors, I think, because all the names are readily recognizable. I think in past years, you have maybe 2 or 3 out of the 5 highly recognizable names, and then a couple from fields that most people don't follow. So the names are very accessible. Trump hosted it, said he was the best host ever, giving it the best ratings ever. So, you know, I mean, the way I'm familiar with hosting a show like this would be you assemble a writing crew, like for the Oscars, the Golden Globes, the Emmys. The host is a talented comedian, and they write some of their own jokes. And then the writing team, which could be 10, even 20 people, they work for months beforehand and they generate more than 1,000 jokes. And then the host picks the best 20 or so for the opening monologue. They work it, like they run through it day after day for a week to see how it plays. And then during the show, you've got all these writers backstage to address anything that might happen during the show. And so Trump did none of this. He so I didn't see it, but I can tell you that his show, his performance as host would have to be crappier than just about any other host because he didn't put in the work. He wouldn't even know how to put in the work.
And he said that he was actually considering, and he kind of put it out there on True Social. I think he put it out there yesterday that if people thought he did a good job as host, that he might leave the presidency to go become a host regularly. So he kind of put this as a joking thing out there that he might decide to be a regular host if folks said he did a great job as host. So he wanted to get people's feedback and all along those lines. So that would be interesting to see what was going on and whether people actually thought that he did a good job or not. Because he's definitely been using even some of the Santa Claus imagery and everything like that. Because apparently, even ICE used a video of Santa Claus to encourage illegal immigrants to self-deport. So apparently, ICE recruited Santa to issue a brutal Christmas message to illegal immigrants, and part of this was being on the naughty list, which we know people don't want to be
So
on.
there's a couple things with that self-deportation thing. So the Department of Home, which all the federal departments that are claiming that 1.9 million undocumented aliens have headed home on their own. They've all decided to go home in the past year. This is in response to people pointing out that Trump promised to deport 1 million people in the first year, and he's fallen short by about 40%, I think. So they're claiming, well, yeah, we got a bunch of people out. They just went home on their own. So they have raised the bonus. If you report to the federal government and say, deport my ass, I think they raised the bonus you get from $1,000 to $3,000. Even so, there's no freaking way that 1.9.
Everything should be located, but don't spell out saint.
Okay. All right. So
ST.
There's no way that nearly 2 million people have self-deported, because we know this because of what happened in 2008. In 2008, there was the Great Recession. There were huge banking and mortgage collapses, and the economy went to hell. It took like 8 years to recover, and during that period, most of which was the crash happened under Bush, and then Obama came in, tried to clear it up, fix it. In those years, about 1 million people after the crash, 1 million people went home, 1 million undocumented immigrants, because the economy sucked here. And they thought, well, if I'm going to, if things are going to be shitty here, I might as well go back home where I can be with my friends and family. So there's no way that, and that whole thing took a couple, 3-4 years. There's no way that they got twice as many people to go home in 10 months as the total crash of the economy forced to go home in 2008, 9, 10. Also, Sasha, I read an article, I don't know, that, yeah, maybe we should be buying gold, even though gold is up 60%. I mean, we should have bought gold last year. It's up 60% for the year. And one main reason is that the dollar is at risk of being replaced as the world's main fiat currency, which.
Well, this is the clip that I was talking about, and we can catch.
Yeah, that's apparently joined AI, right? So they're a bunch of dicks, yes, right? Oh, and that's got to be AI, right? It's just AI slop.
There is
Yeah, this AI slop.
about dollar and gold equation. Don't forget that there is a great initiative worldwide. Is de-dollarization. More and more governments are getting really a very negative view on the dollar and its future, and therefore they're trying to relocate their resources into other currencies and, of course, gold. Almost all central banks are buying gold, and I think I remember one table that I showed it here a few weeks ago, probably, where by the end of 94, no, the end of 2024, US had in reserves, I think it was 8,000 tons of gold, and it remained about the same throughout 2025, whereas Japan had almost the same, even slightly less. But then today, Japan has 10 times as much uh, gold reserves, and the same as China. So these Asian countries, they're buying gold in immense quantities, and that's another reason why gold is going higher, because there is more and more demand on gold.
Well,
Yeah, that
well, let
makes
me
sense.
ask about mining stocks. Historically, you got to be careful with mining stocks because you've been involved with some of those,
Yeah,
and there are legitimate. I mean, but it's kind of like wildcatting for oil. You might hit gold, you might miss the gold, and there's a little bit of there are probably some shysters running around. What do you say about mining stocks?
well, mining stocks, of course, there are two major categories of mining stocks. One are basically exploration companies. They don't have a lot of assets, and what they're trying is to find a reasonable amount of or potential amount of gold or so on, and sell it to the major, and that's how they're making their money. Because they don't have capital, they don't have know-how, technology to really take advantage over the good gold ore. But they can sell it to the major and this making money. Now, there are, say, called senior mining companies, Newmont, like Barrick Gold, many others, who have substantial, very profitable operation. And why they're becoming so profitable and their shares went up considerably. Newmont, 3 months ago, Newmont shares were around 40, $45 a share. Today it's about 100. And what's happened is that imagine that they have certain production year after year after year, and let's imagine that expenses are about the same year after year after year. However, the output, the gold that they are selling now, brings twice as much revenue. So, what do you think will happen to their shares? They will skyrocket. And
Mhm.
that's exactly what's happened. So, if you are looking at the mining companies, I would recommend to concentrate on, for example, GDX. GDX, it's like ETF, and most of their holdings are mature gold companies. And GDX went up quite a bit too itself, but it will go even higher.
Hey, Sasha, I know that it's been going down, and I know you're not a big fan of it, and a lot of people I know are not big fans of it. But apparently, the great country of Brazil has come up with this great idea of tying the music to the Bitcoin. So Brazil is funding a 197,000 live orchestra, converting Bitcoin prices into music. So the performance is supposed to take place in Brasilia, which is Brazil's federal capital, and private companies and individual donors can contribute to the project, with fundraising required to close by the end of the year on December 31st. But as they're saying that this orchestral project received government approval to raise up to 1.9 million reais, which is equivalent to $197,000 for a live performance that converts Bitcoin price movements into music. So I guess depending on how the Bitcoin does, will determine what the nature of the yeah. Matter of fact, it says an algorithm will Bitcoin's price movements and technical data in real time during the concert. These inputs will guide the melody, rhythm, and harmony as the orchestra performs, translating market volatility into an audible composition. So I guess depending on how the market does will depend on whether the music is upbeat, downbeat, or what goes on in that sense. But this is a very unusual approach that Brazil is doing. So what do you think of it?
I think that to begin with, you have to separate music from the Bitcoin, just to understand what means music and what means Bitcoin. And then you'll figure out how they can work together or they don't work together. The music of Bach, Beethoven, Wagner, they don't need any Bitcoin to make their music more popular or better, or in any case, more appreciative than it is already. It's music on which all the Western civilization is being based. It's a music immortal, and it will be there for another uh, thousand, maybe 5,000 years, or whatever you want to take it. Now, what is
I have one more question about gold. So the dollar used to be the world's most reliable currency, but for the next 3 years, we got a drunk guy at the wheel. So people are looking for other, forms of currency that are, and gold is highly reliable in that it's a tangible asset. But is the time horizon for having gold 3 years? Because in 3 years we'll elect a different guy. Will people calm down, and will the price of gold drop if we don't have a jackass as president?
Mm, I don't think that the rise of gold is so much depends on the presidency in the United States. I really don't think so. Of course, unpredictability of Trump makes gold even more desirable because the people they like predictability. They like to see through what's going to happen in a year, 2 years, whatever time period you're talking about. With Trump, there is nothing could be predicted. He is a nonsense, both to foes and friends. Actually, I'm not sure even there are any friends left, but whatever it is, I don't think so. So this Trump, yeah, in some ways it contributes to the rise of gold, but it's not the main reason. And I don't think that the ones basically after a midterm election next year, I think Trump will be effectively out of power. And even if he will remain there until the end of his presidency, 2 years later, I think he will become a lame duck
He
president.
probably will be a lame duck and everything like that. But Sasha and Rick, apparently he got some good news because I know he tries to be the law and order president and everything like that. And they are saying that the U.S. is on pace for the largest 1 year drop in murders the nation has ever recorded. And that was according to a crime stats expert, Jeff Asher, and everything like that. So they're saying that it's part of a broader decrease in violent crime following the COVID era spike because there was a spike during the COVID era and everything like that. But they're saying mass killings in the U.S. fell in 2025 reaching their lowest level since 2006. So maybe there's a good news that not everybody's trying to go out and kill folks. At least
I
here.
saw something quickly. I mean, about that where murders dropped 2,000 last year. Under the last year of Obama, they've dropped about the same this year, another 2,000. So yeah, it's good news. The highest crime numbers. Yeah, there was a spike under COVID,
Mhm.
but the biggest spike in our lifetimes was uh, in the late 80s, early 90s, under the first Bush and under Clinton. And then a couple things happened. One is Clinton tripled the number of people in prison,
Yeah.
and two, internet culture eventually came in, and we do a lot of our business online. We stay home, so it's hard to have
Mhm.
street crime when everybody's in their homes, apartments, and not out on the street.
And
So
actually, that was another story that Axis had because Axis said that agentic AI adoption among U.S. executives jumped from the spring to the fall of 2025. So 90% of leaders from mid-market or larger organizations say their companies are using agentic AI. So the majority of them are using a lot of AI. In the spring, that number was 50%. So it jumped 40% already, and by the next year, it might even be closer to 100% and everything like that. So looks like a lot of companies are going the AI route and they're using AI. Now
So
that could be
there's a
putting
guy I
companies.
follow named Cory Doctorow who talks. He's an expert on the future and on tech and how tech is turns shitty. And he coined the term enshittification, which refers to big tech companies who, when they first start out, Uber, Google, everything's great. They're just trying to accumulate a billion users, and then once they have the billion users, then they try to start making money, and they make conditions worse. And he calls it getting things shitty, enshittification. And he talks a lot about AI, where there's a ton of hype about AI because the seven biggest AI companies are spending billions of dollars a piece developing these large language models and other utilities and hyping it. But AI doesn't live up to the hype. But he says that AI doesn't have to be good enough to replace you. All it has to be is good enough for your boss, who might be an idiot, to think he can use AI instead of you. And
Yeah.
that's a lot of what's going on, where you've got skilled people being replaced with AI crap.
Yeah, that makes sense. Hey, Sasha, I know that this is Wednesday and we're not doing the Friday shows. Matter of fact, after today, we probably won't be back till Monday and everything along those lines because of the Christmas holiday and all along those lines. But I was just wondering, and I know y'all will be talking about it on Tuesday, but it does look like Zelensky is open to a demilitarized zone if Russia pulls back. That was reported earlier today, and he's offering a peace concession and puts the ball in Putin's court. So he's opening the way to having a demilitarized zone in eastern Ukraine in order to reach peace. So are we going to have peace by the time that y'all have y'all's next show on Tuesday, or is Putin going to just totally reject this idea and everything like that? Because it seems like
Uh,
there is pushes to get some peace plan.
Putin will reject any ideas, not just this one, but almost any idea, because it's not in his plans to stop the war. He cannot afford to stop the war because uh, his image will take immeasurable hit, and as a result, he most likely will lose his power. And that for him is more dangerous than even the death. So he will be fighting and continue the war as long as he is alive. So all this talks about the peace or so on, to me, it's complete waste of time. Nothing will be achieved there.
So when Zelensky says he's agreeing to frontline truth withdrawal, is he just saying that, but he's just going to continue to fight the? Is he just saying that to seem like he's playing along, but he's obviously not going to do what? Anyway, is he telling the truth? Does it matter?
It doesn't matter because Russia will not agree to that. And Zelensky knows this really, really well. That's why he can afford to offer this plan or another plan. Basically, he's playing along United States because it was Trump's idea or his people to have a demilitarized zone. It's extremely difficult. Even if Russia would agree to that, it's very difficult to implement. So how you create it when there are fights going every day? First of all, you have to stop the fight. So then you have to say take each side will take back 5 kilometers from the front line. How are you going to organize? Who is going to monitor it? It's next to impossible, and Russia will not agree to that anyway. So this is another waste of time. Let me see. It's like if you can imagine a bazaar, and people, let's say a person is fighting with a vendor to buy a certain widget. So the cost of that widget is $100. So the guy is offering $40. Oh, say no, no, just go away. Okay, I'll give you 50. Yeah, go away. I'm not interested. Well, what about 60? No, 60. I'm not going to do it. So now 70. So once it's going on, that tells you that the deal is impossible. Why? Because one side is ratchet the price all the time, and the other side stands still. They are not offering maybe $95. No, it's 100. Leave it or take it, and the end of story. So you see, the deal is impossible. So here, similar situation. When you are offering a little bit of this and that, and we try this, and maybe a demilitarized zone or so on. And the other side, Putin, they offer nothing in return. Absolutely nothing for almost a year. So what are you going to say about that?
So, are the front lines hell on earth? Ukraine is making 10,000 drones a day,
Yeah,
and Russia's making a ton of drones too. Is
yeah.
this is and is it just this whole front line? I don't know, which runs for I don't know, a couple hundred miles. Is it just like stuff flying around overhead and blowing up? And
It's much longer than a couple hundred miles. I think it's 5 times as much.
okay,
There is a huge border between Ukraine and Russia, and the fights are going almost anywhere and everywhere with different intensities, but still they're going on. Now, the fights and every move ahead for Russians, they're losing around 1,500 people a day. Why? Because they're sending these meat attacks. They're being destroyed by drones and then by Ukrainian fighters. And out of 100 people sent to a meat attack, 98 are being killed. Only two are able to return, immediately get another 98. So here is another unit of 100, and they're going the same way, the same place, with the same result. That's
that's 500,000 Russians killed or wounded a year. How long can they keep doing that?
well, Putin believes that the girls will get newborn babies. They will grow up in time, and so the supply is endless. So the problem is that for the girls would be a great challenge to get the fathers for their
Mm.
kids, because the fathers are very very. There is a, even before the war, historically, the population of Russia is about 65% women and 35% men. It's a result of wars and many other things. So, out of the 35%, half of them are impotents. Another half of those left is they're drunks, and they cannot father a kid or anything similar to that. So, in a way, it's getting extremely difficult for Russian women to get pregnant.
Mm. Wow. Hey, Rick, I got a question for you before we get ready to wind up and everything, because I know you follow, even though you just came back, Hollywood and what's going on in Hollywood. But there is a popular movie about a sport that I never thought of as being overly popular, even though it does become a lot of folks who watch it,
Talking about
the
ping
Olympics,
pong.
and that's ping pong. And there's this movie called Marty Supreme, which apparently is about a ping pong hustler and everything like that. So I was wondering if you've seen the movie
We
and what do you
saw
think
it.
of
We
this movie?
saw it, and it's a really good movie. It's a very long movie, and it gave my wife a huge headache, and it made me very agitated because it's not a calm movie. It's about a kind of a con man kid played by Timothy Chalamet, and yeah, he's one of the world's best ping pong. Set in the 1950s. He's a champion ping pong player, but he's also a shyster and a scammer. And if you saw by the same people or by one of the same brothers who made Uncut Gems with Adam Sandler, which was another very agitating, like everybody's like nervous making movie. Um, it's the same kind of movie where there's just a lot of chaos and people bullshitting and pulling guns on each other. So it's not really a sports movie. It's a movie about like a psychotic a-hole who happens to be good at playing ping pong. And the acting is really good. It's very entertaining, but it will, it'll rev you up in not necessarily a pleasant way.
And apparently, this gentleman, the actual person that it was based on, even did some shows with the Harlem Globetrotters and with some other people as he was traveling around the world and everything like that. I was wondering if either of you two gentlemen were ever good at ping pong. I played a couple of times, never considered myself good. Matter of fact, probably was not that good at all. But I was wondering if either of y'all were masters of this particular sport.
No, and it's a sport like every other sport where you got to put in hundreds and thousands of hours to get really good. They're saying that Chalamet, trained at ping pong for a year and a half to get good enough, and so he's probably pretty good. He could beat any of us like 21-2 or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm sure a lot of the shots were aided by CG, by computer generated effects, because I mean, the ping pong is amazing. Um, but you're not watching the movie for the ping pong, you're watching the movie for the chaos.
Chaos is a good thing to watch it for. I mentioned earlier that Sylvester Stallone was honored and everything like that. Was your thoughts around Rocky and that particular movie? Because there was a lot of people that were, including President Trump, that were highlighting his.
Sylvester Stallone is a really smart guy. People don't think he's just because he talks like this, but he came up with the character of Rocky. He
Mhm.
wrote the screenplay. He took it to Hollywood, and they said, "Yeah, we'd like to buy your script." And he's like, "No, um, you don't get to have the script unless you cast me as Rocky." And he was very determined, and he made it happen. He not only did he come up with Rocky, he came up with Rambo. He came up with two huge movie franchises. He's a smart guy. Now he looks a little goofy because his hair is, who knows, is it hair trans, I don't know what he's probably on, he's pushing what, he's 75, 77. He's on a ton of steroids. He has to be, because he's got like an 8-pack. He's still got the abs. He's got the veins running through. So like he's, but behind it all, smart guy.
Well, one thing I noticed, and like I said, I only saw about 3 minutes of the whole show and everything, but his wife looked very similar to Trump's wife and everything. So they must both be maybe Eastern European or something along those lines. But they did have some
No,
similar.
no, I think she's native grown. Her name's Jennifer Flavin,
Okay.
and I think she grew up in L.A.
Oh wow.
And they were together for 15 years, and then they separated for maybe a year, and now they're back together. And what that speaks to, in my mind, is that they're probably both, even though he's a little bit psycho and they're in a psycho business, that he's probably around the house a semi-reasonable guy, and she's probably a smart, reasonable person herself. But they have their one blip, but they managed to stay together for, I don't know, 30, 40 years.
Yeah, they've been together for a while and everything. Hey, Sasha, before we get out of here, and we're going to get out of here very shortly and everything, we were talking earlier about the other people that were honored, and two of those were, and I forgot the fourth one or the fifth one, but how many there were. Rick went over that earlier, but I know two of them were musicians, one being Kiss and the other being Gloria Gaynor. So I was just wondering, when you were on the cruise, did you ever, as a music director, play any of their music? Because that's more of that pop music, or did you stay away from the pop music when you were a cruise music director, or did you actually play some of the Kiss and Gloria Gaynor disco music?
No, for that music, there was a small band. I think it was four people from UK, and they were quite affluent with the contemporary music, and they were playing this type of tunes. What under my observation, there was about seven pieces orchestra, but they were playing more traditional jazz or mm, popular music for their times. They had some stars would come 2, 3 times a week, and they would do their show, so they would accompany to the show, and I myself played a lot of piano solo music, mostly in a casino, and that was a good gig because basically I was busy myself, just 1 hour a day. So I had in 24 hours, I had only 1 hour played, and
Nice job.
yeah,
Yeah.
very nice job, well paid job, and um, if I would offer the job today, I probably would take it.
Well, I told you my friend that was in this area. He's actually back in town, but because I've been watching his Instagram, I'm hoping to see him sometime in the next day or two. But he did do that job this past, I think it was spring and summer, and he'll probably be getting ready to go back out in the winter. But he's doing some performances here locally for the next month or two until he goes back on the boat. So he's probably going to do the boat for another 6 months to a year and everything. But he's on break right now. So since he's on break, he can do some gigs and all along those lines. Did you have a thing you wanted to say before we get out of here, Rick?
I just wanted to say Merry Christmas, Happy Christmas Eve, and yeah, everybody. I hope everybody gets what they want.
Hope
Of course.
everybody gets the gifts that they want and have a happy holiday. I'll see
Happy
Sasha in
beginning of
about 2 hours
Kwanzaa
with
too,
Modern
and
Investment.
all right.
But the rest of y'all I will catch on Friday. So we're getting ready to get on out of here, and I'll see you in about 2 hours, Sasha.
Thank you.
Yeah.
See you there. Bye bye.
Okay.